Even just looking at the plus minus, like plus 26, like Aries impact, whether it's scoring, but it's defending, it's getting us into offense, it's making the right reads, making the right pass.
It was a highly anticipated showdown between two of the WNBA's most talked about teams, the Indiana Fever and the Las Vegas Aces. With the spotlight shining brightly on stars like Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and A'ja Wilson, from the very beginning, it was clear that Indiana came ready with purpose. With Mitchell taking early command off the screen, setting the tone as a top-tier playmaker, Aaliyah Boston already proving her mettle as one of the game's most complete bigs, moved with calculated patience, commanding the paint and drawing attention with her presence alone. Chelsea Gray looked to feed A'ja Wilson inside, but the timing was off, with Wilson forced too far under the rim to convert. Meanwhile, Indiana wasn't hesitating to ride their offensive rhythm, with Boston setting up Natasha Howard, whose presence in the mid-range and on the boards would prove critical throughout the night. The Fever led by Boston's balance, and Mitchell's execution took an early lead and kept Vegas scrambling to match the energy. Vegas, defending champions, were trying to avoid their 20th loss all-time against the Fever, and seemed off balance in the early stages. Indiana's ball movement showed intention, patience, and trust, something head coach Stephanie White had pointed out pregame, emphasizing better decision-making, especially in half-court sets. On one possession, Boston went to work again inside, working through contact, drawing defenders before dishing it out to the open perimeter, creating clean looks. While Vegas leaned on Chelsea Gray to orchestrate the offense, her rhythm wasn't quite where it needed to be. Wilson tried to assert herself from the elbow, especially going right, a known weakness for her as a left-dominant player, but Indiana's defense rotated well, clogging lanes and contesting everything in the paint. On one sequence, Jackie Young found herself trapped along the sideline, bailing out with a forced shot against the shot clock that didn't fall. Indiana recovered the rebound, turning defense into early offense. Boston, ever aware of her spacing and floor vision, operated like a seasoned veteran, executing high-low sets, using her body to seal off defenders and then either going up strong or kicking out when the double came. The chemistry between her and Mitchell was evident, Mitchell playing at her own pace, stopping on a dime for pull-up jumpers, then exploding to the rim with a shifty first step when the lane opened. One particularly memorable possession saw Mitchell flip the ball to Howard, who rose confidently from the mid-range, hitting nothing but net. You could tell the Fever were in rhythm, even without peak scoring output from every star on the roster. Their tempo, defensive pressure, and shot selection kept the Aces out of sync. Wilson, to her credit, kept attacking, often drawing contact. But her free throws weren't falling consistently, unusual for one of the league's most reliable scorers at the line. Her frustration was clear, and so was Indiana's confidence. Meanwhile, Gray tried to reset Vegas's offense, using her elite passing skills to whip the ball to Wilson and others in the high post, but Indiana had studied the film. They were ready. Smith backed in on one sequence, showing off her footwork, but Boston read the play, rotating in time to alter the shot without fouling. On the next trip down, Boston beat her defender to position and called for the lob. Pass was high, but Boston reached it easily, tipping it to herself, controlling, and finishing through traffic, a pure showcase of touch, strength, and timing. As the quarter ticked down, Jackie Young tried to force the issue, dribbling into multiple defenders before eventually turning it over. That summed up Vegas night early: rushed decisions, awkward spacing, and Indiana capitalizing on every mistake. You could feel the Fever's confidence growing with each possession. Mitchell continued to punish the Aces' soft perimeter defense. On one play, she curled off a screen, found herself wide open, and calmly drained a three before Vegas defense could rotate. Howard, thriving off second chances, battled for rebounds, and helped reset possessions when shots didn't fall. Her hustle, especially against the Aces' front court, kept Indiana's momentum rolling. As the Fever extended their lead, it was clear they weren't simply playing to keep up, they were playing to win. The passing was crisp, and even the bench contributed with smart rotations and hustle plays. Boston's ability to recognize double teams in real time led to multiple kickouts for wide-open looks. One of those went to Smith, who drained it and pumped her fist as the crowd erupted. In contrast, Vegas kept looking to force the ball into Wilson, hoping she'd ignite a run. She managed to get to the line again, but her free throw rhythm just wasn't there tonight. Indiana's defense focused on bodying her up, using length and timely help to contest every move. When she did get the ball cleanly, the Fever quickly swarmed, forcing her to pass out. One of her turnovers came after. A sloppy pass intended for Gray was picked off by Mitchell, who sprinted down the court, finishing on the break with a smooth Euro step. That bucket pushed the Fever lead into double digits and forced Vegas into a timeout. The Aces regrouped briefly and out of the timeout. They ran a clever backdoor cut for Young, who finished the layup, but Indiana didn't flinch. Mitchell responded by dancing at the top of the key, breaking down the defender, and hitting a pull-up jumper at the free throw line. The crowd, sensing something special, rose to their feet. Even as Vegas tried to inject life through their stars, Indiana matched every effort. Boston drove hard at Wilson, spinning into the paint and going up strong a move that drew contact, and earned her a trip to the line where she calmly sank both shots. That kind of composure and efficiency was what separated her performance tonight. As the half neared, Vegas had a momentary spark with Gray threading a pass into Wilson for a tough finish, but it wasn't sustained. Indiana closed the half with a quick 5-0 burst, capped by a buzzer-beating jumper from Howard at the top of the key, pushing the lead to 10 at the break. Coming out of halftime, Vegas attempted to apply more pressure defensively. They sent traps on ball screens, tried switching everything, and pushed the tempo, hoping to speed Indiana up and cause turnovers. But Mitchell and Boston remained poised. One key possession saw Mitchell calmly break a double team, find Howard at the nail, who then delivered a bounce pass to a cutting Boston for the easy layup. It was beautiful basketball, simple, effective, unselfish. Meanwhile, Vegas' possessions grew more desperate. Young tried to take over but was swarmed every time she entered the paint. Gray continued to search for angles that weren't there, often passing into traffic or forcing up contested mid-range shots. Even their transition game lacked fluidity, as Indiana's hustle to get back on defense shut down most fast break opportunities. In one sequence, Wilson got the ball on the block, turned baseline, and looked to power up. But Boston timed her contest perfectly, forcing the miss without fouling. Smith collected the rebound and fired an outlet pass to Mitchell, who found Young leaking out, but instead pulled back, letting the offense set. That discipline, knowing when to run and when to control, was a theme all night for Indiana. Mitchell then used a stagger screen to free herself again, pulling up from deep and drilling a cold-blooded three. The Aces looked stunned. To Vegas' credit, they kept fighting. Wilson finally got a clean look off a spin move and converted. Through contact, completing the three-point play. But it wasn't enough. Indiana's defensive rotations were relentless, contesting without fouling, fighting over screens, and crashing the boards. Howard in particular made life difficult for Vegas wings, denying drives and recovering to close out on shooters. The Aces' frustration grew as shot after shot clanged off the rim, and Indiana used every opportunity to push their advantage. Late in the third quarter, Boston posted up, drew a triple team, and still managed to skip a pass, cross-court two. Smith, who drilled another three. Vegas simply had no answers for that kind of floor awareness and precision. As the game headed into the final frame, Indiana held a strong lead, and it was their defense that continued to shine. Every possession for Vegas felt like a battle. Nothing came easy. Gray missed a floater in traffic. Young had a runner blocked from behind. Wilson got stripped going up in the lane. On the other end, Indiana didn't need heroics. They just stuck to their plan. Mitchell orchestrated, Boston anchored, and Howard punished any defensive lapses. When Vegas switched to his own late, Indiana calmly moved the ball around, finding gaps and delivering timely passes for high-percentage looks. A no-look dish from Mitchell to Boston underneath nearly brought the house down. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement. And it was a statement. The energy in the building had shifted, but Indiana refused to let their grip loosen as they continued to hold back a stacked Las Vegas Aces team trying desperately to claw its way back into contention. As the second half progressed, it was clear. The Fever weren't just riding a hot streak. They were dominating in nearly every category. Kelsey Mitchell remained aggressive, gliding off screens and pulling up for shots with uncanny precision. She was businesslike, focused, and unwavering in her execution. Every time Vegas tried to cut into the lead, Mitchell answered with poise and pace. Her ability to read the defense and shift gears mid-drive gave Indiana the edge when it mattered. Most, Aaliyah Boston continued to impose her will inside, carving up defenders with polished footwork and pulling in rebounds with authority. Even when Las Vegas adjusted their schemes, switching to zone, pressing the ball, attempting traps, Indiana adapted on the fly. Their ball movement didn't waver. Whether it was Lexi Hull finding space for a corner three, or Smith setting up in the mid-post to deliver a perfectly timed bounce pass to a cutting Howard, every possession was connected. You could see the fingerprints of Coach Stephanie White all over this disciplined performance, emphasizing not just hustle, but purpose. Even with key stars like Caitlin Clark sidelined due to injury, the Fever displayed depth, maturity, and most impressively, consistency. Las Vegas leaned heavily on Aja Wilson, who poured in points despite the suffocating defense thrown her way. At times she appeared nearly unstoppable, especially on short fadeaways, or when she got downhill on a crossover, but it wasn't enough. Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray both struggled to get in rhythm for large stretches. Facing tight on-ball pressure from the Fever's guards, McDonald showed flashes of brilliance with her speed and control, slicing through the lane, but the spacing wasn't there to open clean looks. Indiana had flooded the paint, rotating quickly, forcing second and third reads. The Aces tried going small, pushing tempo, and then countered with post-ups. But nothing seemed to crack the Fever's defensive shell. Howard battled inside with Wilson on multiple possessions, going body to body, forcing tough shots while racking up a double-double of her own. Her contributions were less flashy than Mitchell's or Boston's, but just as vital she was the glue holding the defensive unit together and a force on the boards. Every Aces attempt to mount a run was met with fierce resistance. Hull intercepted passing lanes, swiped loose balls, and turned defense into quick transition opportunities. In one sequence, she stepped in front of a cross-court pass, kicked ahead, to Mitchell, who blew past the defense for a high-arching layup that ignited the crowd. Moments like that painted the full picture of the game. Vegas was always a step behind. Even when Wilson made strong individual plays, the Aces lacked the connectedness that had made them a title contender in seasons past. Chelsea Gray was held, scoreless in the first half, and looked tentative, almost searching for comfort. Jackie Young, despite stretches of aggression, couldn't string together enough consecutive quality possessions to spark a true comeback. Indiana, by contrast, shared the ball, hunted high-percentage shots, and stayed patient when Vegas sent extra pressure. The game continued to unfold with Indiana dictating tempo. Colson and Timpson brought reliable minutes off the bench, extending the lead even when the starters rested. They didn't try to do too much. They trusted the system, swinging the ball, reading mismatches, and maintaining control. Mitchell's scoring tally continued to rise, reaching 25 by the final stretch, and her ability to control the clock, pick her spots, and run the offense like a seasoned pro was undeniable. Aces fans may have expected a late-game surge, but it never came. Indiana's grip tightened. Boston worked the glass and positioned herself like a true floor general in the post, while Howard nailed contested finishes and mid-range jumpers too. Keep the scoreboard moving. Vegas did manage a few late buckets. Lexi Hull hit another three, and Wilson muscled in her 29th point. But by then, the outcome was all but sealed. Indiana had built too large of a cushion, and they weren't about to let it go. Their crowd roared with each defensive stop and every smooth offensive set. Even as the game entered its final minute and both benches began to rotate in deeper reserves, Indiana stayed locked in. Timpson hit a fadeaway with the shot clock expiring. Colson drove the lane and kicked it to the wing, showcasing that even the second unit had absorbed the starters' confidence and rhythm. By the final buzzer, Las Vegas had been held to just 44 points, an almost unthinkable stat line for a team built around explosive offense. Wilson sat on the bench, looking frustrated but focused. This wasn't just a tough loss. It was a wake-up call. The Fever didn't just win, they sent a message. With Caitlin Clark out,